It's so good to see you, all of you, and thank you so much for your time, and joining in the conversation. We've been having conversations the past few days. The first one, if you have been following, was about, fashion educators and, implementers and those who develop curriculum and everything. And yesterday we had, we were talking to specialists and all. So today I'm very excited that I have you, and we have four. We are all representing, I think, I almost said southern province, southern region of Africa. We have Europe, we have Asia as well. And today we sort of just want to talk around what is going on in all these areas, what is going on in London, what is going on in Zimbabwe, what is going on in South Africa. And here, we are just starting out. And so basically we're just talking around those areas, and we're asking the question, why secular design? Is it necessary? Why are we doing it? With all these movements, why are we doing it really? So it's really just a conversation with all of you. And I think we can just introduce ourselves and, talk about the work that we have been doing and why we're doing it and where we hope to go with the work that we're doing. So anyone is free to start really. So I don't know who is willing to pick it up.
Okay, I'll go for it. I am Rudo-Nondo, and I am the country coordinator for Fashion Revolution Zimbabwe. I am also a fashion and product designer in Zimbabwe but I have been concentrating a lot on community work with artisans within Zimbabwe and a couple of years ago in Switzerland, and also just pushing the sustainable and circular design agenda within our Fashion Revolution core teams and the designers that we work with within the community.
It seems to me that my connection is not very good today, but I hope people can hear me. Can everybody hear me? I've actually deliberately switched off my video just to. Can you hear me?
Okay.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can.
Should I go next, Betty?
Yeah, Jackie, please.
Okay, so I'm Jackie May. I'm based in Cape Town, and I've been working as a journalist and an editor for most of my career. And about 2.5 years ago, I launched TWYG, which started off as kind of an independent media platform to talk about sustainability, and it has developed into having quite a strong focus on fashion and textiles. And in the last few months, I have co-founded the Refashion Lab, where we're looking at opportunities with textile waste, what to do. And I mean, in South Africa, like a lot of other parts of the global south, we have quite a big unemployment rate. I think we've got one of the highest unemployment rates, and it's a bit of a crisis. So we're really trying to connect textile waste to job creation urgently. There's a sense of urgency about it at the moment. And interestingly enough, the State of the Nation address delivered by our president last night spoke about clothing and textile master plan, which we have in place. And I mean, just loads and loads of emphasis on job creation, and circularity is coming into the conversation. And and they've appointed a climate commission. So some great news there.
Anup, would you like to go? We have
Yep.
Akim Banda joining us. Maybe just before you go, Anup, Mr.
Okay.
Banda from British Council, welcome to our conversation. Maybe you can greet everyone.
Okay. Now, myself, Anupam Majumdar. I am from India. I am basically a textile engineer and a postgraduate in textile design. Now, I worked for several mills in India, textile mills, cotton mills, as well as mills who are working with polyester. Now then, for around 15 years, I am working with the grassroots people, the weavers, and the hand spinners, and the people who are converting the hand woven fabrics in India, even the embroiderers. So I worked as a consultant for Khadi. Khadi is a concept I don't know. Many of you may know. Khadi is a concept that Mahatma Gandhi, that is Gandhiji, our father of nation, he started when our economy was very bad, in a bad shape. Khadi was considered one of the best movement in India for empowerment of the people. You know, now Khadi is a concept for the textile and fashion industry where hand spun cotton and hand woven and then hand stitched. That is called khadi. Everything with them, and still I am a consultant for the whole model. Now, this is my that is what I am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Banda, are you there? Welcome to our conversation.
Yeah, good afternoon, and depending on where you are anyway. India, I guess, is 6 hours ahead of us, so maybe it's about afternoon time. But yeah, thank you so much, Jackie. Good to see you. We met last year. Yeah, I just joined in when you're just giving the some tips there as to what's happening in South Africa. Very excited to see political will actually getting involved in there. I think when you have that support from government level, it's excellent. I think that's wonderful to see that you're actually taking textile waste into employment levels to improve employment levels. I think that's great. We hope that we can learn, I think, also from other countries. So that's great. And oh, lovely cup of coffee there. Ooh, how fortunate you are.
I'm envying that cup
So,
of coffee,
yeah,
Jackie.
and Anupam, I know. And Anupam, Grace, also, I just said what you said in India there. That's great stuff that you're doing. Yeah. And Nick, welcome, as well as Rudo. Thanks, guys, for joining. My name is Akim from British Council. Super excited that this is taking off. And this week, Beta has been very, very busy running these shows. I can just imagine how she's feeling right now.
I'm getting there. Self-taught Jackie, I think you have an idea of, the nerves that I have right now. Nick, welcome.
Hi, Betty. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Hello, everybody. At the moment, and interesting to be talking about potentially the European context because, as you know, we're not really in Europe anymore. So he said very disappointingly, not trying to draw us into that kind of conversation. But yeah, so I've been working in and around circular economy for about 25 years now, originally working within large corporate companies, petrochemical companies, actually looking at the way that they could improve practices and bringing material thinking and circular design methodologies into kind of the design area. So architecture, fashion, product design, and so on. And I guess I've moved very much from the sort of industrial context into more of the kind of social context. So although I set up a sustainable design master's program here, I'm very interested in the relationship between what we call social design and sustainable design, and the relationship between the two, and arguably they're one and the same thing in many situations. So yeah, really looking forward to the conversations today. And we have done work in South Africa before, and I was very privileged to work with Betty last year on the British Council Circular Cultures program and the Making Matters program as well.
So much,
So,
Nick.
hi everybody.
So, hearing about your background and everything, maybe you can we can just like straight away dig into why we're here and what we are talking about. Why secular design? You have the Community 21. Which is a creative agency, a community of practice consisting of creative organizations. Really, you are addressing issues of the 21st century. Could you tell us a bit about your work there at Community 21? How it's going?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of experience, 21 years. Yeah, so maybe you can just tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, in many ways, it's amazing that we're still talking about this as if it's a new thing. Because it's not really been a new thing, and it's about resourcefulness, right? And we're all probably, with our relationships to design, resourceful people. And I suppose it's just reconfiguring the way we think about our resources. And I suppose my very early experience working with plastics companies was that, just as an example, they were very quick to adopt circular principles, mainly because their raw material was threatened by conflict in the Middle East. So when you were, indeed from the African continent as well. And when put under that kind of threat, corporate organizations tend to respond quite quickly with alternative ways to get around those issues. So what they put in place was a way of collecting the plastics back so they could bring it back and reuse it as part of their industry, which is very efficient. It's very technical. It's very much about commodity trading. And what we were trying to say to them is, no, what you're doing is meaningful. And actually in the future, this is going to have cultural relevance. But they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want any of their customers to know they were using secondhand material. And really, it's taken 25 years or more for that to change in the kind of the context and the kind of the way that many organizations think about this stuff. So for me, moving into this notion of the kind of community context was very much about what we kind of class as meaning making. So moving from the big industries and working with smaller communities, we're very interested in not just the kind of objective scientific side of dealing with this stuff that we have to do to prevent pollution, to encourage unnecessary mining or transportation of materials. We're doing this also from a cultural point of view. So looking at how we can democratize design, how we can look to keep materials locally sourced, locally produced, locally used, and reconsider our relationship to materials rather than things that just kind of appear in shops and we don't know where they come from. We have no kind of real connection to them, and reopening and reevaluating our relationship to stuff and making it more meaningful. And that comes through lots of different ways, which I'm sure you guys, we can learn a lot from you. But we found that in our experience, there is the technical scientific side, but there's this kind of subjective side that Betty and others have helped me to really learn about the relationship that different people have with different materials in different places. And that's vibrant. That feels like an ecology. That doesn't feel like a monoculture of big organizations owning all the stuff, which is in a lot of cases what they're actually trying to do. So circular economy has a negative side where many of the companies own the ores, they own these rare materials that we won't get our hands on in the future because they will circulate them themselves, and looking at actually the social political value of reconsidering what waste might mean in our neighborhood and turning that into a really positive thing. And as I say, that has huge, if one believes in sort of Darwinian kind of principles, then for me, that brings us back to a kind of archipelago of ideas, of complexity, of nuance, of difference, rather than just singular organizations solving the problems for us, which we need both. And I work with in both contexts. But I think what's really interesting for me is the social opportunity that comes from us rethinking our relationship to these materials. But that might be an overly positive view on it. But it's not all bad, I guess, is what I'm saying. Thank you.
How has the response been from the community? You mentioned the companies that were, the company in particular, the one that was using used bottles. Do you know what is happening now? Are they letting people know that they're using the recycled bottles, or how is it?
Yeah, it's actually sheet material. A lot of it is kind of what might consider material products. So like Teflon or Perspex or those kind of things. And yes, of course, they're having to continually renegotiate their relationship to these things. And I do think it's very interesting, because obviously the circular economy has been seen as a fantastic idea, a really direct way to encapsulate a way of thinking that is quite inclusive, and lots of people can see the idea and its complexity in a way that makes it accessible and usable. But I think there's also obviously an opportunity, as I said before, for companies to misuse this idea and see it almost as business as usual, really. Certainly within fashion and so on, there's lots of questions happening around whether the circular economy is actually almost helping to drive further inequalities and so on. And so I think, all of these companies that we've worked with, and I've worked with large fashion brands as well, are having to constantly rethink what is their moral as well as their material responsibility. And those two things often go very much hand in hand. So, I mean, that was a rambling way of answering your question, Betty. Directly, the company that I was talking about before has, of course, embraced this idea of seeing itself more positively as a circular economy business, even though it works with plastics, which of course have become, having a very, very negative connotation in society. And again, this is where we help them to think about the management of that material that just won't go away. There's no point pretending that it will go away. The only time it goes away is when we burn it. And we don't want to do that. So these materials are precious, so we need to rethink and revalue them. And that fits well with them, because they want to see their material as valuable, and because obviously that has monetary potential and connotations built into it, but also it fits with some of their branding around the idea of quality. And obviously quality and luxury, these things are really interesting, malleable terms now. And even, the big luxury fashion brands are really rethinking their relationship to reuse and recycling. Actually, one of the products that myself and my wife Tanya have made is a pair of shoes that's made of recycled spectacles, and it actually talks a lot about our relationships to secondhand, because obviously in the African context, many countries are refusing secondhand materials, rightly or wrongly. That's all to be debated and discussed. Whereas some of even the big brands now, the big Madison Avenue brands, are really thinking about their relationship and how they communicate through materials about their changing ethics and morals. So I think for me, all of that is just deeply, deeply fascinating, because it's as much about the human condition as it is about the materials themselves.
I know you've worked a lot also. You have a lot of experience in working with circularity, and I just want to hear, as an individual, I've known you for some time now, and I know that as an individual you live in a certain way that is so inspiring. You have inspired me, actually. And
thank you.
yeah, I want you to talk about the professional side of you working with weavers, because you work with people from the grassroots, yes, the weavers themselves, and companies. You've worked with big companies, and how has that experience been for you? And the different experience with the big businesses and the smaller businesses on the ground. How has that worked for you?
Okay. Thank you, Betty. And thank you, everyone. The thing is, because we are here today for circular design, and circular design, is it necessary? Yes, it is necessary. It is absolute necessary. When you say circular design, without acceptance in economy and in social background, design don't exist. Design actually don't exist. What we are designer we're doing here, We are petty people who are making different kind of product. That's it. We are making product for whom? For the people in the society. One hand for the people in the society, and another hand there are big business houses, tycoons, they're making it. We are just in between, one people who are using it and one people who are making it. Now our whole culture, our whole uh, they taught us to use. We all make designs for consume. So I don't believe in this way. Why we are consuming the world? We are consumer here. We all are consumer here to consume the world, consume our own, thing. So I am against the world of consume. And when you minus the word consume from your brain, then you see the world is different. We are not consuming here. We are not the consumers. The circular design, circular economy start from here. First is reduce. What do you mean by reduce? You have to accept the basic. That's the reduce. You have to accept the basic, the bare minimum thing. That's the point of reduction. That's the point of reduce. Other than anything is extravagancy. That's what I mean. And then you are saying reuse. It's okay. Reuse is a good thing. Reuse is a good thing. I personally reuse a lot of things. People throw out things. I take and I wear it. I started this in my life 10 years back. When I shifted my big job from multinationals to the weavers of India, I started like this. The shirt I am wearing is a second-hand shirt. Because I'm a textile professional, I know if I wash it very well, nothing remains in it. This cotton and anything, it's not anybody's own. It's natural. It's only mindset. It's only the mindset. Somebody says it is first hand and somebody says it is second hand. Somebody says it is third hand. Doesn't matter anyway. We are saving our earth. This is one of my relative. He is a very big businessman. Every 2-3 months he buy a lot of watches and he threw out them. This Sicko, it cost around $1,000. He threw out, and I am wearing it today.
Okay.
It's written Sicko. Nowhere is written it's my relative's watch, and it's working perfectly. And
Why
when I
did
go
he
with
throw
it,
it away?
because he needs more, he needs more. He needs more watches. He needs more t-shirts. He needs more everything more.
So what
There is
you're
never
saying
end of
is
it.
that for us to start targeting or to start
Yes.
encouraging, we have to encourage
Yes.
first of all the
Yes.
bare minimums. That's what you're saying, right?
We need to encourage people. We need to set up a different kind of background. We need to teach people that nothing wrong in this. Ultimately, doing this, you are saving the world. And third point is recycle. I don't agree with recycle. When you recycle a thing, what you are doing, you are extracting the material from the original product, isn't it? And in the process of extracting the material, you are using energy again. You are using energy again. So where is your carbon footprint? You are actually increasing the carbon footprint. You are damaging the world, basically. There are a lot of people, they are saying there are 3 steps: reduce, reuse, and recycle. For me, the recycle step is the minimum process. If you recycle a thing, you save our earth only 10%. That's it. Nothing more than that. Only 10%. You, now, another thing I want to tell, that circular thinking must start with socio-economic model. It's not a design thing. It's not a design subject at all. Circular thing, the whole circular ideology must start with socio-economic model. We need to come up with a good socio-economic model for everybody, not for the tycoons. That day I was talking with Betty. If you remember, Betty, when I was in Kafue, uh, in Zambia, I I am I was fortunate to see the villages inside, and the small village, shops, roadside shops and everything. I never found a silk, a cotton, anything over there. I found all the Chinese reused goods. Why? When you are saying recycle or reuse, so all the people less able, they are targeted for reuse. No, I have visited Europe 1,000 times, several times. I have never seen people are using reused things over there in Europe. In India, yes. In third world, yes. I am not against uh, anybody. I am not against Europeans. I am not against even Americans. But this is a fact. This is a fact. So when you say it's a circular economy, when you say it's a circular design, then please speak all this. Circular economy for whom? Circular economy for the third world? Circular design for whom? For us only? We are the
So,
producer of the cottons.
yeah. So,
We are
Anup,
the producer of the, yeah.
just to ask you there. So you
Yeah.
think that sorry to cut you short. So you
Yeah.
think that there is no. I'm trying to understand
Yeah.
your thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think that what do you think about secular design in India? And
Even Indian scenario and Zambian scenario is not a different scenario. Even go to Indian villages, they are the producer of the cotton. They are wearing polyester, second-hand polyester. Why? They don't deserve second-hand polyester. They are the producers. They are the growing cottons.
so what do you think should be done in that area then to?
Now, I worked several years with Reliance Industries, one of the biggest producer of polyester in the world. One of the biggest producer of the polyester in the world is Reliance Industries. It's in India. So, and then after a time, when I reached a good position, I left this company. I thought I'll not work for this. No way. That is not my motto. Now the thing is, they are they are saying a lot of things in their whatever note and whatever way in the market, but they are actually increasing their production. Why they are increasing their production? Why? Who needs polyester? You tell me, na? In textile industry, who needs polyester? Do you need it? They make polyester as good as cotton, and they name the polyester cotton rich. No cotton is there. Only the name is cotton rich. Because if you want to search whether it is a cotton or polyester, then you need to test it. After testing only, you will come to understand that this is not a cotton, this is a polyester. So why you are doing all this? Do you think this kind of attitude people are doing all over world, not only Reliance, because I work with Reliance, so I know everybody is doing. Why? You encourage cotton, na?
I think
You encourage cotton. There are a lot of cotton in the world. You encourage cotton. Forget polyester. Wherever it is necessary, polyester is necessary in industrial parts and machine parts, you use that. But polyester is not necessary in wearing and textiles. It's not at all necessary. Why you are doing it?
I think there's a lot
Because you want,
to do with changing, just like you said, changing the social aspect of all these things in order to deal with how we are going to drive the circularity. I'm going to just quickly
and circular economy. Without you have a circular model of environment, you can't achieve circular design or circular economy. Now, let me tell you something else. In India, some example I want to give you. In India, our women wear saris. Sari is a dress. It doesn't require any stitch. Okay, it's a 6-yard cloth. Our women only drape it. Okay, and the same sari they can use in several other uses, multiple uses, because it's only a cloth. It's a thin cloth. That's it. So we should study this kind of product as an example for circular design. Our design thinking, our design conceptualization should take consideration of this kind of product.
like the sari, where there's zero stitching, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it don't require any stitching. Basically, it's stitching less, and because it is a 6-yard cloth, if you don't wear it as a sari, if you don't wear it, you can wear it elsewhere. You can use it elsewhere in your household, everywhere. And in India, it is our. I understand.
I'm going to move to you, Jackie. You can just talk a little bit more about your movement, what is happening on the ground in South Africa. I know that you have the sustainable awards, sustainable fashion awards, and all those things. How is it going? How are the designers, reacting or responding to that? And how are the people? Because when these designers design the clothes and all, I'm sure that some people are there to buy or not to buy. What is happening around that?
So it's interesting you asked the question about buying. I don't do any sales. I haven't engaged with that at all, and I don't think I will. The purpose of the awards is really to kind of showcase the people who are working more responsibly and to try and support them. I mean, it's very interesting to hear Anu's comments on cotton. Our biggest problem here is access to preferred fibers. So most of the designers, when I've done surveys, I speak to them often, it's like, where can we find decent? We know their farmers growing cotton here, but we can't find it. We can't buy it. It gets exported and gets beneficiated outside of the country, and then it comes in at costs that can't be afforded. So really what we try and do is create an ecosystem of support. If I do find any information that could be helpful, or I connect people to, the hemp importers, but that again is imported, or when we do find cotton that people can use, we make sure that people know about it, and put stories together, and trying to build that sort of support structure. So it's really been interesting. And also, we don't have a fashion awards in South Africa. So we've got a few fashion weeks. There's a lot of kind of rivalry between the two, but this is sort of an award ceremony, and it's really trying not to be a competition, really just celebrating, and not to only be about fashion design, but also this year I want to introduce a category for CMTs and manufacturers. And then there's a big emphasis on trying to grow the sector again. We had behind the closed borders of apartheid and before globalization, we had quite a thriving a thriving industry here. Quite a large part of that was making uniforms, including army uniforms, which is a bit depressing. But subsequent to the opening of the trade barriers, imports, I mean, Anu is referring to imports. We have a lot of imported cheap clothing coming in, and there is a bit of a secondhand market. I think some people do get permits to bring in secondhand clothing, and I think there's quite a lot of illegal activity going on there too. I mean, I don't think I know that. So yeah, it's just trying to get a healthy ecosystem as we rebuild the industry to also make sure that it's done responsibly. We have a very, very strong trade union, so they're on top of the kind of ethical labor side of it, which is great to know. Yeah, but just to facilitate this transition that we have to go through. And now, as I said earlier, I'm entering into the textile waste space. And trying to find, I think in India, there's an amazing example of an organization called, I don't know how you pronounce it, but Kunij. I just saw the World Economic Forum did a little story on it recently. And just the concept of getting waste that, what we're trying to explore is what opportunities there are for the textile waste that doesn't get mechanically recycled, and that doesn't. We also have a fantastic organization that does stuff with the end of sale garments from retailers. So they're in perfect condition. They just would otherwise have been burnt, or I don't know what the retailers historically did with them. But what about all the stuff in between that is not quite good enough for secondhand, or doesn't get sold on secondhand? So we're looking at ways to deal with deal with that, and we think there's job creation opportunities there. But there's a lot of research to be done and experimenting. And I'm sure Rudo is going to help me with this because I'm going to come and pick your brain.
Yeah.
I'm also so impressed with what the Imaloa collective is doing in Mauritius. I'm sure you, Rudo, you're following them. They're just doing such lovely work.
Yeah. When I said bye, really, I was thinking about the designers who, of course, they are coming on and they are doing all these things, right? When I mentioned bye, I was thinking that obviously there are some designers who may be doing this for a living, for example. And, are they doing it for a living, or they're just doing it to sort of like show appreciation that, they are aware about all these things surrounding fashion design?
No, I think the designers that we're working with, they're making a living out of it. So I've noticed how there's two designers who are kind of both have had international recognition, who hadn't previously thought about themselves and their practices, and through the one I'm thinking of particularly is now on a big program with the Woolmark competition, and he has just apparently, is changing the way he thinks and the way he works. And another designer has started doing, she did one little experiment, did another experiment, and now almost all the work she's doing has got elements of, and it's just incredible stuff. I think people are really thinking through things very carefully. The woman who won our Changemaker Award was really, really interesting. Actually, she mostly makes her living out of wedding dresses, which are incredibly single use and, on the top of the list of single use fashion. And she has been going through an exercise of using plastic bags, recycled plastic bags, to create her creations. It costs 20,000 Rand to buy one. It's incredible the work that she does and puts into it, but it's recycled plastic and recyclable. And her next collection is made out of fabric waste that a Rewoven has given to her. So it's just interesting how the mind shifts, and it just takes one or two little inspirations or projects or something, and then it just changes the whole working experience. And that, I think, is what TWYG has done, is through our interventions, whether they're media interventions or the TWYG Awards or a little event here or there. We do a swap shop. We've done some We've done some mending workshops. It just, it's just amazing how, and I'm sure, I don't know, you really do this as well. It just takes a little intervention to change somebody's thinking. It's very, I love it. I mean, I think for me, what I'm very excited by is change of behavior and how stories can do that. And increasingly going into experiment, not just stories, but experiences. And this is quite new to me. So Nick, it's nice to hear. I'd like to hear more from what you do, but the power in that. And you too, Betty, workshops and speaking to people and traveling around the country to change behavior and change mindsets.
Rudo, you're there. How is it going in Zimbabwe? I know you are coming from being a fashion designer yourself and then transitioning into being an activist. And how is it going? How have people, responded to all the efforts that you are making in Zimbabwe, really?
What I would say is it's a step-by-step process for us in Zimbabwe. And when I really just started looking at how we could start using waste again was, I would say, maybe back in 2016, where the economy kind of did another dip. And, again, we were wondering, where does our material come from? So we had already started having these conversations. But then when it came to access of material, material was getting expensive. So and then the usual designer complaints were around, well, there's secondhand clothes. So we have a huge secondhand clothing market here, and very illegal, but it thrives. So, designers were like, now we can't compete with the clothes that are coming through the borders. But once we buy new fabric and start designing, it's just not economically sustainable. So what I then discovered, again, just through a journey process, this is mostly through Fashion Revolution and just, personal research and value, like my value system, started seeing how we could start collecting this waste and using it making it something new. So we'd take clothes, quite a few designers have experimented taking denim and using denim as it's long wearing and long lasting, and making accessories, making things like jackets, dresses, just out of pairs of jeans. So it's been a slow take, but what I've been doing now, I suppose the activism role, is encouraging designers that I work with to try as much as they can to incorporate something into their collections, either by way of reducing material waste or using waste that is coming out of, and I think I should stop calling it waste, using offcuts, material offcuts from factory floors, using things like the denim. Sometimes, in the secondhand markets, you will find really, really good cotton products in there, really good quality that you can take and reuse into something new. So we started off just as Fashion Revolution Zimbabwe by creating a designer challenge. That was back in 2019. And it was the first challenge where we onboarded designers to come on, make something new, but without buying any new material. So again, once you allow a designer into that space to see what they can create from the materials that are available, you'll actually see, just similar to what Jackie was saying, a change in pattern. So most of the designers don't actually go back to the way they were designing before. There's a lot of thought into what is going into their production, into the way they're producing. Last year, we onboarded another 2 designers who were actually using end-of-roll fabrics, and they would actually go to fabric stores, because what we realized happens is once you maybe get to the end of the roll, the fabric store doesn't sell the 0.5 meter or the 1 meter if no one wants to buy it. They just put it all back in a warehouse. So one of our young designers discovered this warehouse and again has made it open source. And we went into the warehouse and could pull fabric and start seeping through. So our journey is very experiential, like we're experimenting a lot. This year, we've onboarded another 3 designers to again just go through the circular process, and they are using offcuts from accessories design. We've got accessories designers, shoe designers, and a fashion designer who's actually looking to work by, you know, making new clothes using block patterns, but is collecting pieces of fabric. So for us, it is really about reusing. I was forced into the space, and so were many of my peers, because of lack of access. So you have to make use of what you have, right? And we're very resourceful. Zimbabweans are very resourceful. So we found a way to start this trend. And I hope it's not a trend, but it's something that is actually going to be embedded in our culture. Because when you look at our history, we are sustainable by nature. We do mend, we do take care of our, you know, our clothes. We do have multifunctional pieces of clothing. The only thing that I think has happened is that now we've opened our borders into the secondhand clothing. And by allowing that to come into the borders, now we're facing that competition. So fast fashion is now achievable from our perspective. Whereas by now, again, working with young designers and designers in that space that are making and producing and bringing in this method of thinking, I think we can balance it out, whilst, you know, we work again in the background on policy change around the excess material that is landing in the borders, around what happens and how you properly dispose of material. We've got a lot of designer collaborations between clothing designers and accessories designers, where we don't need the offcuts. So we will literally bag them up and give them to accessories designers. I found this as well in the artisan communities, where artisans are incorporating just even things like plastic into their weaving, incorporating those textiles into their weaving processes. So we can definitely give this a long life. And yeah, that's basically where I'm from, or, you know, the journey that we're taking. So we're still very new at this. I'm still very new at it, but we are literally finding our way through every project. And the more designers we're onboarding, we're building a larger community of designers that can mentor younger designers and their peers in the creative industry.
Rudo, has there been any kind of support from government towards your efforts?
No, we're kind of under the radar, because it's very tricky when you look at things like secondhand clothing and the policies involved. So our movement, I would say we are activists. So we're very under the radar and making change in our interim space. And by doing that, we are hoping to then engage the government, as opposed to going to the government and saying, stop doing this and stop doing that, where there is nothing to prove what effect it has on the actual economy and on us. So the best way we can do it is just start cleaning up. So the way we started our process is, let's start cleaning up our immediate area of work. And the only way we can do that is by coming together as a collective of creatives, designers, artists, and cleaning up that mess, whilst also preparing for the talks around policy, which I think will be another 3 to 5 years at the rate that we're going.
I think Anoop mentioned minimizing consumption. I don't know, Anoop, are you there?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm looking at, we are talking the fashion industry, right? And when we start talking about, you know, the fashion industry and everything else, we are talking production, we are talking employment, we are talking all these things. So now my thinking is, if we go so much into minimizing what we consume and things like that, are we not maybe this is just you know, for are we not in a way reducing on production? Maybe we are going to reduce on employment levels or something. I don't know. Anoop, you are the one who brought that up. Maybe you can, you are on mute.
Oh yeah, tell me something. do you think the kind of clothes we produce in all over India, the human race in this world actually require all this? This is a basic question. If you don't, you know, if you don't ask this question, then your production is going haywire. I know since long I was working in home furnishing division in a textile mill. It's a big mill. You know, one day they stopped their home furnishing division because of what? Because they import lot of second-hand home furnishing material from Turkey, and India is flooded with that. In these days, India is flooded with that. That means India don't require any more production. There are still people, they are producing in India, but I know they are facing a huge lot of competition. Europe and other part, they are making lot of extra productions, what they cannot sell. So why they are producing? You know, if you ask this question, that means you're asking this question is actually supporting circular design concept, isn't it? Isn't it? You know, only fashion industry and only textile industry is not there to support for the employment and everything. For the cause of supporting employment, you cannot produce things what you don't require. This is a very basic question I am asking. You may say that this person is talking entirely different than design concept, but yes, it is happening everywhere. The world is in a different mode. We all have to put down our step and work together to bring this world in a good mode, in a circular environmental mode. Half of the world, half of the people, we all destroyed our environmental thing. No, for what? You know, Betty, I am telling you, uh, all these wardrobes in my house are full of clothes. We don't know what to do. Last 4 years I am not buying any trousers because my trousers are not they are all fine, all fine. I am not growing anymore.
Okay.
I am not growing
And you're not
anymore.
becoming any smaller.
I am not becoming any smaller. So what do I do? Why I require more trouser? I don't know.
Okay.
Because you are producing new fashion, that's why I have to wear it. Because you don't know what to do with your fashion designs, so I have to wear it. Look, this whatever I am speaking, it may sound very, very odd, but yes, it is. I am asking the basic questions. If you don't ask all these basic questions and only doing product design or this design, that means you are not concerned of this world. You are not concerned of anything else. You are only a designer. I refuse to be only a designer. That's why I'm here.
So much,
I
Anupam.
just refuse to be only a designer.
Yeah, I'm going to ask Nick. Are you there? Nick, are you there?
Yes, I'm Betty. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm going to ask this question because you have worked with the community set up before for all designers and all. I'm going to ask, is circular economy realistic? Are we being realistic when we are talking about circular economy?
Well, I think obviously Anu asked these, really fundamental questions, and I think it is realistic because in a way we don't have a lot of choice. I guess it's how far we're prepared to go before we recognize the fundamental aspects of what this means, and of course we're in a context at the moment where our very fundamental ideas and ideals and thoughts about the world are being challenged, and I guess realistic. I think again, for me, this is why culture is so important, because as you know, as Anu's talked about, this notion of why we want something, we have to uncouple this from this notion that want is specifically about what a retailer or a brand tells us that you know, that's want, you know, and again, looking around the world, I mean, you know, you can't go anywhere without finding a Nike t-shirt or, you know, or these things. And as you say, rightly or wrongly, the demand, it's about the demand, isn't it? It's about the culture that sits around the demand that wants that thing, whether it be new, secondhand, recycled, virgin material, whether that material comes from, you know, the forest next door, or whether that material comes from the other side of the world. And I think this idea of mindsets I really like, because it's this idea that of the kind of malleability of this stuff and change, and it feels very much to me like it is a psychological thing, you know. How do you create demand in all places of the world for things that are either locally sourced or environmentally sourced and so on? This conversation is being had right now, but the realism comes when people, like you say, when Anu really astutely identifies when need and want become different things. And I think that for me, that's what makes this, as we've all identified, I think, an issue of psychology, an issue of culture, an issue of behavior. And that's where it gets very interesting for me personally, and I think for many designers, because in many ways we know how to take stuff from here and turn it into something else. We know the technicalities of polyester, we know this and that, but what we don't understand is the diversity of desire and the way that we each think about these things. And that's the bit that I feel having these international conversations and helps to, I think, bring realism to this idea that it is about, as I was speaking about earlier on, a kind of democratized design. And I don't really like that word, because obviously it's been hijacked in terms of its sort of political nature, but it is about a kind of freedom, a freedom of expression, a renegotiation around this idea of diversity and difference, rather than kind of monocultures of want and you know, international tribes that all look the same and all behave in the same way, and therefore, you know, that has a sort of, you know, corrosive impact on diversity and difference. And I think, as I say, for me, the positivity around a lot of what could be happening is about isolation. It's about connecting with individualism, but in a way that isn't hijacked by large corporations, or is much more about people re-engaging with what they think and what they feel and how they want to express themselves. I mean, I grew up in the 1980s in a time in the UK where there was huge diversity in music, in culture, in different tribes. There were, and that's not always a good thing, but that seems to have really been drowned out. And subculture to me just doesn't exist in the UK sector in the same way it did. And I think that's but I think it's about re-owning this space as individuals. And I think, you know, that is that realistic? I don't know. But I see hope, and I see a response against the homogeny of brands and this lack of subculture that, you know, has been drowned out. I hope we can refine that, and I think circular economy fits very well with that idea of you know, recapsulating, re-owning what we use, what we buy, what we make, and how we think and express ourselves that way. I don't know, that may be, like I say, an ideology that's
okay.
not realistic.
Jackie, I think the last one, we're almost like winding up, but Jackie, I wanted to know what you think, or how you think secular design can change the fashion industry for good. You know, how do you think it can? I think that also goes to you, Rudo, and Anup. How do you think you know, secular design can change, or how can we change the trajectory of fashion for good, really, using secular design? I think we can all answer that one, I think. Yeah.
I think what Anu said earlier is is so important. The idea of desires and wants, and what are we making, and who are we making it for, and why are we making it, and who needs it. And the fashion industry has been fabricated really in many ways to push sales, and it's and to make, there's certain very rich people who make money out of clothes, and it's a complete fantasy and fabrication. And if we had to work out how many clothes actually need to be made, how many clothes we really need, it would be very interesting to do that mental exercise, and then make clothes for those numbers. And what are those clothes? I mean, we don't want to turn into a dull, expressionless, Handmaid's Tale kind of society, but we certainly shouldn't be making as many clothes as we are. And I also think it's really sad. I mean, Rudo, I don't know what your experience is, but in South Africa, every second young person wants to be a fashion designer because it's a way to be famous and it's glamorous. But we really need teachers and nurses and doctors and people to grow food. We don't need so many fashion designers. So I don't know how to answer your question, Betty. I think there are more questions than answers, and I think that these comments are really, Anu and Nick brought up the same thing, are really important, and I think makes me want to get to work.
Okay, I'd just like to add on to just what Jackie said as well, but answering your question, Betty, and from a practitioner's point of view, I think the first thing is to look at clothing as a need. We've taken it out of our hierarchy of needs, and it's become like clothing is a status symbol and just all these other things that have been attached to it. And then secondly, again, as a practitioner, is if we start looking at fashion as an art form, we will start to value the clothes that we're making. We'll also start to value the clothes that we're buying and the clothes that are being displayed. So, coming from a perspective where I'm a maker and a buyer, when you see something as art, you place a certain value on it and you want to show it off and you want to wear it to as many events as you can. But when you just objectify fashion and look at it as a garment, it is something that you can just buy and throw away. So I think the interpretation of what clothing is what firstly needs to change. And then the value we attach to the clothing that we're putting out and the clothing that we're buying needs to change as well.
Yeah, can I?
Yes, please, Anup. What do you think?
Uh, the thing is, uh, you know, design school, we learn a process called design process. Before you design anything, you need to follow a process called design process. And in design process, there come several steps. One step is brainstorming, where you are taking lot of things around, and you are taking the ideas, inspiration from these things. Then in the time of brainstorming, before conceptualization, you need to take these 3 points. One is circular design, should be circular. Design should be circular economies. Your design must fit in this group, otherwise you are a failure designer. One part is that. Another thing is, what I need to say is, we need to widen the circle of the circular design. It's not only designers. We need to widen the circle of this circular design. We need to teach people to accept circular thing in their own life. Then only your design and then only your concept will sell. We need to tell the producers who producing your designs that please accept this circular thing. This too is very important. I have to say that much. Thank you.
I think there are, just like you have said, Jackie, there are so many questions coming up, more questions than answers. And I think this is actually, it sounds like, there's more conversations that can come out of all these questions that we are asking, trying to really find out why we are doing all these things we are doing, and how can we actually make people want to, live in a certain way. Just like you have said, we have to start with the social makeup and all those things. Yeah, it's really interesting to know what is happening on the ground. And I think we need more conversations. But just as last words, what can we say, each one of us, about the work that we have been doing, and what you think can be done in the immediate future to sort of like bring this into reality for an individual in the community. And anyone can start.
Well, Betty, for me, I think it is about continuing these conversations and trying to diversify. I think that there's a real threat. We here we feel a real threat at the moment around isolationism, borders going up, and things. But there is a flip side too. There is a reflective process that's going on about what do we need. Literally, I'm not supposed to leave my house at the moment, so getting access to things and so on is I'm very privileged to say something that we have to think about in ways that we don't often have to think about. And I do think it's helping us to redress this notion of need and want, desire and meaning, as I say, cultural meaning, social value. And I think if we can diversify design away from its current kind of demands into something that's much more diverse, then I think circularity can really help us to get there in a meaningful way. I think that can do something very, very powerful. So I think we need to keep talking and keep learning from each other really about where this diversification provides something that we all can learn from, but we have our own individual and independent and self-defining, but also positively self-serving versions of the same thing.
I'd be happy to go on and add that we need to make it more accessible and just invite more people into the spaces that we're working in as well. Be willing to share our ideas, be willing to share processes, but also, make it a very accessible and a very safe space to come and try new things out.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that, but I think that open source and sharing is really, and the collaboration is so important. Just to grow the tribe, obviously as quickly as possible.
Anup, any last words? I can see Professor Kanyati, I can see Madam Piri joining us. Thank you so much. Anup, any last words?
Yeah, acceptance. Without acceptance, you are nowhere. Accept.
What we need to accept.
Yes. The last word is acceptance. That's it.
All right. Professor Kanyati, are you there? Would you like to add something to the conversation? Okay, I think we are having a connection challenge there. Mr. Banda, any last words you have to add to the conversation?
Yeah. So I think for me, there are lots of lessons here. I think I'm hearing we shouldn't be making more clothes, and I totally agree with that to some extent. For people like us who are grown-ups, and Anupam, I think you just made a point there. You don't buy trousers anymore, and I'm just thinking, how many times have I been buying trousers as well? Because I'm not changing. I'm just today, and I think I'm also in the same space as yours. But I think what I'm thinking is to get rid of what I have, because I still have lots, possibly 2-3 suitcases of things that I'm not wearing. What should we do with such things? And when you're talking about questions, then answers that we have, I'm already thinking that this conversation will actually strike more questions from the wider audience, which I think you should be prepared as a panel to respond to, because it's a very, very interesting conversation. And I'm super excited about it. So well done for all the great works that you're doing there. But I think as a country, for example, Zambia, we need to do a little bit more raising awareness so that maybe one day we could be like India, or could be like South Africa, or could be like UK, and we can all continue to learn from each other. I think that's it from me, Betty, and the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. Really, we are short of time, and I wish we could go on and on talking about this, but I know how busy you are. And just like Mr. Banda has mentioned, hopefully we can continue these conversations, and we can find more answers, and together we can start building a better world, because the whole point is really to build a better world for everybody, where our resources are not depleted, and we are thinking about our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren, and the world that they are going to find when they get here. So I think that is really what is important. And yeah, I think we can, we'll continue talking about these conversations, and trying to spread awareness about circularity and the benefits of circularity and what is good about it. So everyone, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And yeah, it was great to see you, all of you, again. And yeah, we'll meet in the next conversation. Yeah, thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.